Well, hello again, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger, and I wanted to talk briefly today about vaping. Vapes, ELF Bar, Lost Mary, Geek Bar Pulse, Geek Bar Plus. I don't know. I'm an old. I'm not very hip. I did vape. I heard about DARE officers telling children, if you smoke, you're a loser. Now, this is interesting because when I was growing up, if you didn't smoke, you were a loser. So all social predications set aside, vaping arrives, and it's billed as a safe smoking cessation tool, meaning if you can wean yourself off of cigarettes and over to a vape, well, then at that point you can reduce your consumption of the nicotine. You can taper. Now, and eventually when you hit zero, you're done. You're free of your nicotine addiction. So my life story goes, when I'm 14, my older brother, who's 18, gives me a Marlboro. And I got higher than a Georgia pine smoking that Marlboro, and I felt really good. I felt like an adult, and there was nothing I did not like about the idea of smoking. And that began my addiction, which spiraled out into chain smoking. For a few years, I was buying pipe cut tobacco that's actually cigarette cut tobacco. The tobacco manufacturers did this to help people out who were poverty level when the tax rates for, like, they decided they wanted to phase out smoking. Smoking does property damage. Let's be honest. If you're a landlord and you own property and you have smokers, it damages it reduces the value of the property. So the system basically decided that they weren't going to tolerate it anymore, and somewhere along in the 80s, maybe, in certain parts of the world, and then by the time the 90s came around, smoking was just not tolerated anymore. And one of the ways that they implemented this was by taxing through the roof. So these tobacco companies, I mean, the actual product of tobacco is really not expensive at all. It's easy to produce and produce a lot of it, so it doesn't have a lot of value. And one of the things that some of these manufacturers did was package cigarette cut tobacco but label it pipe cut tobacco, because there was some grandfather tax loophole for pipe cut tobacco. So if you were smart, if you went on the internet and read about it, you could buy a rolling machine. You could buy cigarette tubes, which were paper, the filter and the paper, and you would insert the tube on this machine, put the tobacco in a little slot, and you would crank this handle, and it would push the tobacco into the cigarette, and then the tube would pull out, and you would be left with a homemade cigarette. And it brought the cost down to a dollar and a quarter, maybe $1.50 per pack of 100 size home rolled cigarettes. That they weren't bad. They didn't taste like a Marlboro. Marlboros are treated with all kinds of different things, ammonia. They do all kinds of stuff to it to make it more difficult for you to abstain. They're engineered for you to just crave it and constantly use it. So people who were the more intelligent addicts living this lifestyle, maybe they were alcoholic, beer drinker, or alcoholic types that smoked. You would run into these guys that were smoking these home rolled cigarettes, and I was one of those guys. I had beat the system. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was I could not stop smoking. So I switch over to vape. And previously, going back to the days when I was purchasing cigarettes from the gas station, I had tried to quit 9 times. And I would do this usually in January. I would make a New Year's resolution, and then I would go cold turkey. And I did it 9 times, but it was so traumatic, like it was so jarring and so horrific what you have to go through. I went back to it. I wasn't ready to quit, I guess, and I was still living that lifestyle where I was hanging around with guys who were smoking and drinking beer constantly. So, whereas I remember making it 9 months one time, and then I smoked again. I was never able to fully quit, and I believe the reason behind that was the trauma involved with the cold turkey process. Now, I had remembered my mom giving me the talk about drugs and talking about heroin and how at some point these heroin addicts will go to the government for aid because they don't want to continue this lifestyle. And what the government does is they give you methadone, and then they reduce the amount of methadone really minutely in small reductions over a real long period of time, so your body doesn't really notice, like if you were to go cold turkey. And this way people are able to get free from methadone. And I always thought, well, if that works for heroin, I bet you it would work for anything else, including nicotine. So the mental procedure that I went through was to prepare myself with information about vaping. At this time, when I quit, it was 8-10 years ago when I did this. Nicotine salts had not been invented yet. This was not a thing. So vaping was actually healthier. It really was a honest to goodness healthy, less addictive. You're not getting any of the other additional chemicals, and you had the option to make your own e-liquid and taper. And that's what I did. I tapered over the period of 1 year. I got to 0 nic, and I got rid of all my vaping gear, and I didn't miss it. I was fine. I didn't bat an eye throughout the whole year of lowering the nicotine, because I lowered it by 0.5 milligram every batch that I made. And a batch would last about a month. Or was it 2 weeks? I forget. Now, more recently, what has come to light, going back a few years, this thing called a Juul came out. And this product, Juul, Juul, is marketed for children. Their flavorings and colors, and it's portable. It's real easy to hide. And like if you ask an adult what a Juul is, the ratio of like junior high, high school kids that are going to know what a Juul is, as opposed to a guy who's 50 years old, you're going to find out real quickly that this product is whether it's marketed to children or not, the reality of it is that kids are the ones who know about this, and kids are the ones who are using it. Now, Juul, nowadays we have ELF BARZ, we have Lost Mary, we have Geek Bar Pulse, we have all these other different things, and I'm sure there's 100 other different products that I could not name you because I'm 50 and I'm out of the vape scene. I don't care about that stuff anymore. The reason I'm making this video is one really scary and sad reality that is nicotine salt. So somewhere along the line, they figured out that they can create a chemical byproduct of nicotine that is called nicotine salt. And this is like the crack cocaine version of nicotine. This is infinitely more powerful and addictive. And I know how much regular nicotine had its hooks into me. I wouldn't want to have anything to do. I would never take a hit off an ELF BARZ. Never. Never. And this is what we see now. We have a new generation of vapors. The stuff is made in China. It's not really regulated. We don't really know what they're doing. And then you hear about horrific stuff like they're putting asbestos in baby food. Like there's stuff coming over from China that's like, me play joke, me go pee-pee in your Coke. They're commercially sabotaging products to make them harmful. So if you are involved in this, what you need to do is determine the level, the amount where you're at, and switch over from ELF BARZ to a rig where you are making your own e-liquid. And like they sell two types of vapes. There's the disposable vape, and then there's the one where you recharge the batteries. They have 18650s. So the disposable vapes are really cheap, and what I'm talking about is a more significant investment in money. But what you can do if you find yourself addicted to nicotine salts is do what I did. Convert, meaning switch from disposable. Start purchasing real vape gear and polyglycol liquid. Get yourself a gallon of that. Purchase some nicotine liquid and some flavorings and start mixing your own. And this way you can create e-liquid yourself in your own home safely, and you can monitor your consumption and you can reduce it. And if you're using nic salts, like I don't know if you can purchase that stuff. I'd imagine you could you can get it. It's coming in the disposables, so you could mix a little bit of that in if you had to wean yourself off of it. But the idea that they figured out a way to like weaponize nicotine to make it infinitely more addictive is not a comforting fact to me. It's actually, it really angers me. And the other side of this that's really bad is the disposable vapes are using lithium-ion batteries and people are throwing them away en masse. You have a whole culture of people that just go to the liquor store, buy their ELF bar, and when they're done toking on it, they throw it away. And this is really like earth-killing, bad for the environment. So, and it's like a permanent addiction. You know, there really doesn't seem any easy way to get yourself off of nicotine salts. And who else is going to be talking about tapering? Have you heard anyone talking about that? I know, I told you my story, how I figured it out. It was from something my mom told me when I was a little kid. And it worked for me. I'm coming up on 10 years free of cigarettes. So the takeaway here is don't vape. Vaping went from this innocent thing that was a smoking cessation tool to now it's this evil thing that's even worse than cigarettes. The nicotine salts are way worse than smoking a cigarette as far as the addiction. It's horrific. And they'll tell you, oh, we did the nicotine salts because smokers who tried vapes complained that they didn't get the throw hit, they didn't get the nicotine rush that they got from smoking a cigarette. So we did this. We made this nicotine salt so people would be able to vape. No. That you can say that in theory. That's a fine song and dance that you can do when you talk about nicotine salts, but they did it to make it to get people hooked, to get lifelong customers, and that's evil. That's evil. As a society, we need to evolve. We need to trim the fat and get away from so much of our bad habits. And stuff like corporations tricking people into lifelong addictions that end with them having to suffer a cancerous death at a premature age is absolutely ridiculous. If we want to go around marching and carrying flags about treating trans people right, today I'm carrying a flag for the nicotine addicts because I was one of them. And this information is not as freely accessible. You have to kind of educate yourself about these facts and what is nicotine salt. So I'd encourage you to do that. They always say do your own research. If you watch this video and you learn some things, you're curious, don't take my word for it. Look into it and you'll find the horrific facts relating to the statistics involving nicotine salts. They're really, really, really bad news. Anyway, you guys, I have no stake in this other than I feel like information is power. And I would encourage you to do the same. If you have a YouTube channel, you should look into this stuff and make your own video on it. Because this information needs to get out there. They've got these ELF bar, and it looks like a piece of candy. You know, it's wrong. It's evil. This is all greed based. So that's what I'm on about today. I'd really love to hear your comments. And better yet, if you don't know anything about it and you're going to come on here and yell and scream and call me names. Before you do that, take a look and educate yourself. Just type in Nick Salts, thing, and read about it. This is not good. All right, you guys, take care of yourselves. Try to stay cool. Hug your pets is what I always say. That's important. And peace.